Welcome in, everybody, to the newest episode of All Things NBA from A to Z, presented by Ball is Life. I'm Kris and here alongside Zach Noble and Albert Nguyen to discuss the 2024 NBA season. It is full steam ahead. The in-season tournament, we're deep into it at this point. We've got like a couple games already down in each bracket. I mean, the season's going, guys. You know, James Harden's been traded. This is the NBA at its core. And I think that the last time we did an episode, we did Stock Exchange, and I talked about how we're slowly getting past the part of the year where everyone's excited for the season. Teams are starting to, fan bases rather, are starting to go, oh, we suck. Some fan bases are okay, and they like that concept because they want it to tank. Some fan bases thought they were going to be a top 6 seed and are now realizing the play-in might be a lucky outcome. Whether you are Orlando or Memphis, whatever you got going on, I really think that the shine is starting to wear off for some teams across the association. And so we are going to calculate our score on the panic meter. Should teams be panicking? Is it too early? Is it too late? What do we think? Guys, we each brought in a team from each conference. Let's get this party started. I want to go to Zach. And Zach, you pick a conference, you pick where you're starting, but I'm going to let you get us ripping here because I feel like you always have so much to say about the NBA. You just takes galore over there. So get us going.
The pressure, but no, I loved the spooky sound leading into it. I felt like I was back in Halloween. But yeah, some of these fan bases are just terrified right now. I'm going to start with an easy one right now, and maybe it's not easy because some of these players are really controversial, I'd say. I've never liked the fit of Zion and Brandon Ingram, so that just leads you to the New Orleans Pelicans. They're my team A, and the reason why I chose them is Zion's recent comments. He hasn't been sounding great in his presser in general. But this team, I've always said I didn't like the Zion Ingram pairing. Other people have disagreed with me. I'm maybe right because it's not working right now, but I mean, I definitely have been wrong at times because they've won a bunch of games when they're healthy, but they're missing CJ McCollum. That's the thing. So now you got the one guy who's supposed to be healthy, joining the injury prone of this team. But I personally believe they should have sold high on Zion already. But if you just ride this thing out, his stock is just going to go down even more. And that's why my panic meter is extremely high. And I'm a person that always says you give the team 10, 20 games, 20, 30 games, to start the year. And this team's only 4-6 and not terrible, especially with the injuries. And mind you, we haven't even mentioned Trey Murphy. Like, come on, they're just riddled with injuries. But with that said, I'm at about an 8 or a 9 for these guys because I never liked them in the first place. But Zion's comments, I mean, I'm okay if you're at a 10 for this team. Like, honestly,
Hey,
I really think you need to. I'm a 10 on the Zion scale. I think you got to trade him immediately because he's not like one, he's not performing at the level he wants, but two, the dude's not engaged. Like, there's no way you can think this guy is bought into this team. And so let's move on. Let's shake this league up a little bit. Where are you guys at on the scale, and why am I so crazy?
I gotta just say quickly, you know, there were members. I gotta really phrase this carefully. There were members of the New Orleans Pelicans organization who believed. I'll give you this. There were members in the New Orleans Pelicans front office or front office adjacent operations. You know, I'm not saying anyone on the team is like a source of mine, right? But there were members of the Pelicans front office who thought that Zion might get moved this past offseason. This is something that, I don't think would be a shocker to them. And from what I'm hearing recently, is, you talk about NBA GMs and different agencies like they're a high school hallway. Well, everyone's gossiping about the same thing right now, and I'll tell you, it's the same guy they're gossiping about. Those comments were really loud, and those comments reached a lot of different office buildings, a lot of different places where some pretty important people work. I think this is a situation that is going to be one of those that is drawing attention for a long time now, whether it's a Miles Turner kind of situation where it's a really good player who seems to be in trade rumors for several years but never gets dealt and keeps getting extended, or whether it's someone who, like a Jeremy Grant, is a really good player but gets moved all the time. Whichever way this goes, I think it's one of the two.
Yeah, first of all, for me, I'm just excited to be back with my boys. It's good to see you,
Long
Zach,
overdue, man.
Kris. But this Zion situation, so I agree with Zach. I think they have to move Zion, and it's not only because of the fit. We're not going to get to like all the off the court stuff that he dealt with over the summer as well, and he did deal with a ton. But the team just isn't, like Zach used the word engage. It's also they're not really playing for each other, right? And that's when you know the team isn't really going to be a winner long term. Yes, they've shown a lot of flashes in the last year or two when they were healthy with Trey, Herb Jones, CJ, Zion, Brandon Ingram as the closing five, maybe sprinkle in some Jonas as well. That was a really good team, and they were actually one of the exciting teams before injuries really derailed last season. But you can't say when healthy or before injuries year after year after year. So there's only one thing they can do is try to maximize what they can get back from Zion. But I do want to say a few things, on the New Orleans side, because we can't all just agree, right, on the same podcast. They've had a really, really tough start to the season in terms of strength of schedule. The third hardest schedule so far. And again, they've been playing a majority of that without CJ McCollum. And Zion has been integrated back into the offense, but again, he doesn't look like he's fully in shape again. And then B, it just again, it doesn't feel like, the fit is there from a personality standpoint. I think the games actually fit really well. But if the personalities are not being reflective and playing for each other, then their full games are not going to come out on the court.
Guys, he's career lows across the board statistics. I mean,
Yeah.
He's declining. Whether it's because he's not bought in, as he says in his presser. I'm trying my hardest to buy in his exact quote, but the dude's supposed to be on the rise. He's supposed to be one of the biggest prospects in the game right now, and we can argue about the fit later. I need to know where you guys are at on the panic meter. I mean,
yeah, so
1 through 10. Let's get a number out there.
I think it's all contingent on Zion, right? One more thing I want to say, like Zion from a talent standpoint, I think it was justified that he was one of the best prospects ever coming into college, going to the NBA. But we all knew the style that he played was not going to be 10, 15 years long. So we wanted to see peak Zion for 6 years, maybe 8 years. It ended up just being, 2, 3 years, right? Because he is already on the decline and his style is not going to get any, more finesse. My panic meter, honestly, out of all the 6 teams that we're going to discuss today, I think this is the highest one.
Woo,
so give me 10
of
10 for New Orleans.
Wow. I'm going to go 6. I think Brandon Ingram is really good. I think Trey Murphy III can be really good. I was not big on Dyson Daniels, but I did have a mid first round grade on him in that class. So did I think they reached big time? Yes. Yes, I do. But do I think he can still be a solid player? Yeah. And you know what? If Zion can really be as good as we know he can be, Brandon Ingram is a number 2. Trey Murphy is a number 3. Guys like Alvarado, Herb Jones, and Dyson Daniels carrying those role player spots. And then you even got a Valanciunas who's talented. You keep making tweaks, right? You make tweaks over the years. You extend your core players and you make tweaks. You probably need to get a real junkyard dog kind of 5 in there that's a little more modern, maybe can stretch the floor. Do you want to Porzingis when he's done in Boston? Probably not the injury risk you're looking for. So need to go elsewhere. Maybe the draft with all of these tall, talented players coming out. But I think the Pelicans are definitely within saving reach. I just would be a little concerned if I were them right now with the guy who's most important to making it all go. having his buy-in be a question and being talked about with the media is a little rough. So I'm going to go a flat 6.
So last question on the Pelicans. You're not willing to trade Zion just yet.
If I'm them, I would not.
Wow.
That may be unpopular, but
man.
I try to make it work. I think if you can make it work, it's a real easy case to get him to stay.
I think for him personally, he needs to get out of New Orleans.
Like, what makes you think he wants to stick around? Like,
yeah.
How do you get him to buy in?
Who cares? Who cares? Win a playoff series, and then you can talk
you
about
got to get there first.
You can talk about wanting to play somewhere else, but until you show your action, you can't potential your way, right? Like the league just watched Ben Simmons saga play out. You can't potential your way.
The league will potential his way, though. That's
Right.
the thing. There's gonna be 1 or 2 GMs out there that are so enticed by the potential there and the ceiling there. That's the thing with the NBA, man. Like every single year, there's 1 or 2 guys or 1 or 2 contracts are quote unquote untradeable, and then they just get traded. I think there's always going to be a buyer, and I think Zion, still young age, still very talented. We saw when it was point Zion, he can actually distribute pretty well there. Maybe Zach is on to something. Maybe the Ingram Zion fit isn't there, because I agree with Kris. I think Ingram is a solid guy, but he's not going to be the number 1 guy on a championship contender team. He needs to be number 2 or potentially number 3, because they don't have a closer. We all think Zion's that guy. Even Zion is not really a closer because he doesn't have a jump shot.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Ingram sucks or anything like that. I mean, that's why I think the panic meter is Zion ruining the inside of the organization and getting everybody else to want out right now. And I think his stock personally can continue to go down. That's my panic. Like, I think they can move on fine. Like you guys are saying, there's talent on this team still there, but they just got to do it quick. That's where my panic comes in on this team. But we gotta talk another time, Kris, on why you think there's a chance they can get Zion to buy in, because that's crazy to me.
All right, let's move on to the next team. Yeah, next team. Yeah. So one team where Zach thinks they need to blow it up. I'm gonna go to another team in the East where I think they should have blown it up 2 years ago. Chicago Bulls. They're sitting at 4-7. They have the 6th easiest schedule so far through 11 games, but they have a terrible offensive and defensive rating, bottom 15 in both categories. This fit hasn't been great, and this is another, when they were healthy type of team. They did play pretty well with Lonzo and Caruso and those guys, but the Levine, DeRozan, Vucevic trio is not working, and the guy that is the youngest and has the most value is Levine. So I think they just had to move on and really rebuild, which kind of sucks because this is a city that is so passionate for their sports teams, but the Bears are terrible, the Bulls are terrible, and we'll see how the Cubs are going to do moving forward. But they really deserve a team that is going to be a winner for that city.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wanted the Bulls to tear that team down as soon as they got DeRozan. I do have to give them the credit that, you know, the lack of rim protection was band-aided in that regular season, that first go for this team, by the perimeter defense of Lonzo Ball and Caruso. The thing to me, though, is the injury risk with Ball had to be baked into signing him. And, it's part of why the market for him was what it was just a couple teams. I really hope he gets back on the court in a way that allows him to have several consecutive years of healthy basketball. I mean, I love watching that guy play. I cannot wait for when watching Lonzo play every night is a thing again. But putting this team together the way it got put together was always either under the assumption that Levine was way better than he was and way more ready than he was, or that the fit was just going to work because of the talent, which was never high enough in the first place to make fit like that work, or the front office knew it was never going to be enough and they thought that this would just be a step to the next tier of team, but they never even reached that decent tier. So, whatever it is, whichever angle it was, the experiment failed. It's time to move on.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot there. So I would say it. I mean, it all started crumbling with Lonzo Ball coming in. it worked for the first, what was it, 30 games? I mean, it looked really good. He was the connector, and as soon as he went down, it was never going to work with anybody else. And honestly, they kept it together because I think they were believing in Patrick Williams being that missing piece. Zach LaVine's ceiling much higher than it was, and Zach LaVine's kind of been one of my misses too, but I also don't think the fit's great. I'm still a lot higher on LaVine than most. But with that said, I mean, this is another team. I think all three of these guys are at their absolute stock highest value right now. And like, obviously DeMar is not in his career, but like that it will ever be. And I think you literally have to dismantle this entire team, Patrick Williams included. Besides maybe, I mean, Lonzo Ball is not worth anything, but besides maybe Lonzo and Io, but like they need to blow this thing up, try to get any first round picks they can in 2024 because
Isaac, Anthony,
it's
draft capital for LaVine Williams.
let's
God bless.
Go. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Like
Orlando would love it.
Like I posted, there's like 16 teams that should be interested in LaVine. I mean, half of them are up for debate. The teams I think Raptors, Pistons, Lakers, Hornets, Heat, Kings, and Knicks are probably the top of mind for me. But I mean, DeMar DeRozan, Vucevic are going to be really hard finds. I think regardless of what you do, they have their own pick this year, I believe. I got to double check on that. With that said, I think you bottom out. You get the first pick, the highest pick you can, and take any first round pick you can for DeRozan and Vooch. I don't think you might not, like, look at Bradley Beal didn't really get a first, so it's going to be hard. What do you guys think with blowing everybody up? Like, what's trade value? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so let me challenge you guys on Zach LaVine, the player, right? So I think we can all agree that he has great athleticism. He's a great shot maker. But my thing is, when has he ever won? When has he ever played in a winning system and been the key cog of that? Because even when we're talking about the success that the Bulls had 2 regular seasons ago, it was because of Lonzo's connecting on offense. It was because of Caruso's on-ball defense. It was because DeRozan was so fucking clutch in the fourth quarter. Like, when was it because of LaVine? And that's why, in my opinion, the team that does trade for him is going to make a big mistake. Unless the infrastructure there is so strong, whether it's LeBron and AD and LaVine's a third fiddle, whether it's, Embiid and Maxey and LaVine is the third fiddle. Like, unless he buys into that and becomes that third star, I don't see LaVine being successful anywhere. So to answer, I guess, the question Kris had, panic meter for me, it's not a 10. I don't think it's Zion level in New Orleans, but it's close. I think it's an 8 or 9 because that fan base, again, I talked about it earlier. They're thirsting for a winner. They don't have a winner in any sport right now, and they need something. And it sucks because that's a great city, a great town, it's a great sports town.
So my panic meter is a 10, by the way, like flat 10, because DeRozan, Vooch, and Zach, I truly believe they all look very disengaged. Zach's numbers are down across the board. DeMar's numbers are down across the board. It's a terrible situation when you got Vooch being your best player. It can't happen. You got a couple max players on the team. So something's got to give there. I think they can't wait any longer, else I just think these guys are going to lose value. I mean,
yeah,
Zach, none of them are high right now either way. So it's a crazy situation.
Yeah.
They waited too long on this.
Yeah, even if they were to get moved today, you're moving it 50, 60 cents on the dollar. So I agree with you there, Zach.
Listen, I said at the start of the episode, some teams are too late. This is exactly who I was thinking about.
Need that birth control.
Wow. Hello. Caruso to Sacramento would be fun. Thoughts?
that would be fun.
What about Davion Mitchell and draft capital for Alex Caruso?
Poor Davion Mitchell.
What about Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, and draft capital for Levine and Pat Will? And it would have to be like 2 unprotected firsts.
Sure. I mean, those two teams have tangled so many times in the past. So yeah,
What
why
about
not?
If they can get
Boston?
1 or 2 firsts anywhere, like take
What
those and
can
run.
Boston make Vucevic money work?
I mean,
I
I
don't
love the
know.
idea there. I mean,
Right? All right.
that's
well,
one I didn't think about. I mean, Al
what about
Horford's
what
a
about
staple though to
what
get rid of.
about Memphis for DeRozan?
Don't like that. I mean, I like Levine there. I like Vooch maybe there. Yeah, Vooch and Jared Jackson Jr. should work.
Hey,
Get
now.
rid of Adams. Levine
I mean,
next to Ja and Desmond Bain. Like, there's enough defense to go around there.
Hey, there you go. Listen, I gotta go with I gotta go with saying that they should trade everyone that can be. Just do it. Just suck.
All right, we're all on board.
Just do it. Panic meter 9 because 10 is like
Burn.
everything's falling apart. You know what?
They're actually healthy. They are healthy.
Players. I was gonna say players only meeting that early is 10 level, but they're all healthy. It's not, the guys aren't untradeable as of right now. So the panic is only at a 9. I'm saving 10 for real, like terrible all-time bad circumstances. The Bulls screwed themselves though. Anyway, Al, I gotta say that was a really good pick.
Chicago, Chi-Town.
Was a really good pick. I'm gonna go with my first team, and it's gonna be a team that I think you guys are both a little panic metered up on. I'm actually gonna make a case as to why I wouldn't be so worried. But the Phoenix Suns, man, the Phoenix Suns need to be discussed. They are a team that has not been off to, let's say, the most auspicious start to their season when it comes to injuries and everything of the sort. They're the 9th seed right now at 4-6, tied with none other than the New Orleans Pelicans. Phoenix, man, let's talk. What are we thinking? Because for me, I think that I actually wouldn't be worried or too worried. And the reason why is I knew coming into the season Nurkic wasn't some stud pickup at center. I told Dwayne Rankin of AZ Central, Zach, remember I told him Drew Eubanks was to be watched out for?
You did. That's still a question that Eubanks talked.
And he told me Eubanks must be my boy because there's no way he ever plays over Nurkic. Guess who started the second half with Durant and the starters the other game? Drew Eubanks. So listen,
finishing
man,
around the rim, I'll give you that.
He's good.
39% from Nurkic right now. Like, give me a break.
He's a mini Hartenstein. Anyway, basically, you take a look at the Suns, and I think Beal looking bad to start the year or not playing at all was exacerbated by their depth, specifically what kinds of players they have off the bench. Now, we've talked about how Kevin Durant had the best playmaking jump of his career in Brooklyn due to all the games Kyrie was out before they got Harden. He really had to play make for that team. Nowadays, Kevin Durant's 6-7 assists is really not out of the question on a game-by-game basis. He could drop that any night. And I take a look at Devin Booker, someone who played point guard before Chris Paul got there. I take a look at Bradley Beal, someone who I thought the Bucks should have gone after Beal for years and paired him with Middleton and Giannis. They got Dame. That's the better version. They'll take that, right? But and they got Dame for what I would have given up for Beal. So there you go. But I do think that they've got much playmaking over there and staggering to do that they haven't been able to do yet because Beal's been out and Booker's missed some games. I think it all just looks bad because the guys they picked up on those veteran minimums are guys like Keita Bates-Diop that are not creators. They're just nice plug and play players. So for me, I'm actually not worried on Phoenix, and my panic meter with them as of today is at a 3.5. I would not be overly worried with them. I'm feeling good. I think that there's some things to worry about that they came into the season with. I came into the season at about a 3 panic meter with them, 2.5. I don't think 3.5 is a huge jump from there. So that's where I'm at on the Phoenix Suns. That's my first team. What do y'all got?
All right, I'll go here. I'm higher, honestly, on the panic meter. I'm probably going to go about a 6 or 7. That's just because of injuries right now. And Nurkic, his field goal percentage around the rim is just atrocious right now. And I'm not going to buy into Eubanks being the ticket going forward. He'd have to be Looney-esque in order to make this work. And I just don't
Yeah.
think he's anywhere close Looney. I mean, bring a Hartenstein down there. I think things could look a lot better. I like that guy. But their bench has impressed me. I will give them that. I like what I'm seeing from their bench. Katie's doing a great job getting this team to gel early. I think there is some offense being ran there. I don't think it's just your turn, my turn. I think it's like looking more seamless in the couple games they've played together than, let's say, the Clippers, which isn't saying much at all, or even Dame and Giannis. So I'm more impressed with how they've played together. That's because Booker and KD played together all last year, and they played very well together last year. So it's a different situation. Bradley Beal is really the only link, and they're not asking him to do a ton, but Bradley Beal hasn't looked great. That's pretty concerning to me. I mean, 3 games in, he's shooting 33% from 3, 39 from the field. He's had 1 good game out of 3. But everybody else, their 3-point shooting needs to go up. They got to be a top 10 minimum 3-point shooting team for them to do anything. They're right now 14th in the league in percentage, 15 in attempts, and those numbers got to be sky high. And for this team to have success, in my opinion, that's where it's going to matter. I know they're a mid-range team too, but like their bench, what separates them, in my opinion, what I thought is going to be the 3-point shooting. Grayson's doing his job. Shout out to Grayson. I nailed that one so far, but
He
I
is.
mean,
He is.
it's hard to buy into, man, if we can't see them all. So until that point, the health of them, and Bradley Beal off the gate, 3 out of 10 games. I mean, a guy who can't stay on the floor the last 5 years of his career. I
Mhm.
don't know. 6 or 7 might be low. Where are you, Albert?
Yeah, for me, it's interesting. There's a lot of nuance with this team because their record in the regular season means nothing to me, right? This team was constructed to win a championship. They're not here to try to win 60 or 65 games. They're working on things, but I would say that I think I guess the mindset or the way they're playing basketball is a little perplexing, right? Because right now in the half court they play at a glacial pace. I think the only team that plays slower are the Knicks, but the Knicks can play that slow because they have an elite defense, right? They can lean on that defense, really grind you out, and they are very physical. The Suns don't have any of that. They're not physical. They don't play well defensively. And the thing that is really troublesome, honestly, if you look into the numbers, is they've had the easiest, guys. They've had the easiest schedule so far out of all 30 teams after 10 games. They're sitting at 4-6. Yes, they've been hurt, whether it's Beal, whether it's Booker. But I think what's troublesome for me, and again, I'm not worried about them from like a team standpoint because I think it's really going to be make the playoffs, be healthy when the playoffs come around, and then see how they're gonna compete. Regular season, it is what it is. But this past game, when they were in a rut and then they went back home to play the OKC Thunder, and they get blown out at home in their own gym against the Thunder, that was a little perplexing, especially in the fourth quarter. I think they only scored 9 or 11 points. They got outscored by 15 by the OKC Thunder in the fourth quarter. And you had Kevin Durant. I mean, that's just really bad. And I think, again, I'm a Kevin Durant fan, but I think the fear for Kevin Durant amongst players, especially late in the fourth, I don't think it's the same, guys. I don't think people
No, he's
fear
not
Kevin Durant as much as they did when he was on the Nets. And that's not his fault. He's 2-3 years older now. He has 2-3 years more of lingering injuries, and he's just not explosive. Like he does the same 3 or 4 moves, getting to his spot, still unblockable with the mid range, but it's much more easier to defend because he's not taking it to the rim anymore.
No, I love that. I mean, I agree what you're saying. And the only thing I really push back on hard there is the defense. I think they're actually trying hard, and their defensive numbers aren't terrible. They're like 14th in defensive rating. Like when you
Yeah,
look at a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, who should be a top tier defense, regardless Drew Holiday or not, they're bottom 5 right now in the league. And the personnel on Phoenix, again, early season sample size for defense, I really don't care. The
true.
Timberwolves, for instance, like, yes, it matters to their success right now. I've never bought into early season defense meaning a ton. Like early season offense always means way more to me, just polish, because I think defense comes with time and it's hard to sustain throughout an entire season. But that's just my take. I could be wrong on the defense. Holding up. But I'd much rather have a team look good offensively early in the year and bad defensively. But I mean, it's developing good habits. But again, if this team can get to a top 10 defense, their chances are a lot better. But
That's
I always said
asking.
if they can,
Yeah,
it's asking a
it's
lot.
asking for a lot. Yeah, you're asking for them to be a
I've
top 10
always,
3-point shooting team, which is tough for that core, especially when all three superstars are going to be playing 40 minutes a game. And then you're asking for them to be a top 10 team defense with those three guys playing 40 minutes a game. So that part is hard. I agree with you. If those things happen, Phoenix is going to be a contender. But I think the way that they're going to have to win moving forward is to lean on their special skills on offense, in my opinion. Like you either be a defensive team or an offensive team, and I don't
oh,
see
it's
that team.
offense.
Yeah, I don't see that team being built on defense.
Yeah, so then if they get to be like a top 7, top 5 offense, they're gonna need to be, I think, a top 17 defense minimum for the
Sure.
regular season, and that they are. So it's the shooting that I'm unimpressed with so far. Did we?
All right.
Yeah, I
I'll
think we
I'll go
said
ahead
numbers.
and
I was gonna say that's it. So we go
yeah.
back to Al now to go through one more time.
Yeah, Phoenix I wasn't too
Snake
worried about.
draft.
It's right in the middle. Like it would be a 5 on a panic meter for me. The Lakers, this is similar situation. I think they've
The
underperformed
Lakers.
just like
Yep.
yeah, they've underperformed just like Phoenix. I think the biggest culprit to that, and again, I put a lot on his shoulders. You guys know how high I am on him, but Austin Reeves has been struggling to start the season. He just got benched recently, so now he's coming off the bench as the 6th or 7th man. But the biggest thing to me is their team defense. After they made the trade last season and they went on that run where they were out shooting everyone in free throws and they were defending other teams, they're not doing that right now. They ranked 20th in team defense, which is terrible for that team, and they're playing at a very slow pace. So that's a double whammy, right? Sometimes when you see a team that plays really fast, their team defense numbers are not great. A team that plays really slow, their team defensive numbers might be a little inflated. This is just a double whammy. They play slow and they don't defend. So unless Los Angeles can really get together on defense, I don't. I'm pretty worried about this team for the long term. And again, this is another team like Phoenix, where it's championship or bust. So the expectations are much different.
I
Go for
told
it,
you
Kris.
guys I wasn't in on this team. And
You
the
did.
reason was because there's just a formula nowadays. Top 10 player. I'll say it like this. There are 4 things you need to have. If you don't have one of them, it's okay, but you better be really good in the other 3, and you better be close to having it. You know what I mean? I think you need a top 10 player. I think you need a top 25 player. I think you need star level depth. And what I mean by that is everyone's a star in their role. You have some of the best guys in the league at what they do, doing just those things. Really, really well cast bench guys and auxiliary starters. And the 4th thing is continuity, man. You need a little bit of continuity. I'm not in this current NBA landscape on a team that was just put together winning it all. And that's kind of why I've like maintained the Clippers as my dark horse / legitimate championship pick, because I feel like we are due for a team to come out of nowhere. But the thing is, Kawhi and PG and Lou, that's not out of nowhere. So that's that part of the formula right there. Top 10, top 25, and the continuity with the coach. The Lakers, they've got the top 10 guy if you think LeBron's still doing it at that level. And if it's not, then LeBron and AD pretty much add up to a top 10 and a top 25 guy. It's tough to have AD in that top 10 category, but availability. I don't think it's the best ability. I think it's an important one though. But I always think that statement's a little overdone. I do think though that the depth was never there. The star depth was never there. They have two pieces on this roster that I look at and I go, those guys are perfect for this team. Austin Reeves and Taurean Prince. Those are the two pieces on this team that I look at and I go, those guys are perfect fits. Do I think D'Angelo Russell is like good? Yeah. And I think he's had some great games from this season. I also think he's had some real rough games from the season, as is the D'Lo experience thus far in Los Angeles. And I are actually not thus far. I mean, he was there before and was a rookie there. So in this latest stint in Los Angeles, I think D'Lo's been kind of up and down for them. And I predicted a big season from him this year, and he's had some big games, but it's not a consistent thing. And I just think overall the Lakers struggle with having that star level depth game in, game out. Rui's great. Some of these guys are great, right? But they're not fitting a role perfectly. That is like one of those like Bruce Brown, Josh Hart roles. They're missing that kind of guy. In my Jared Vanderbilt, maybe, like, it's all just maybes with the supporting cast. And Reeves has been the biggest maybe of them all. Maybe he'll be a good player to finish the year. Who knows, right? So we'll see what happens. I am very pro giving guys time to figure stuff out when they've just gotten what is at that point the biggest paycheck in their life. So Julius Randle got a 2-year, $18 million deal from New Orleans. I was not really like freaking out on the adjustment for him because that was set up with his rookie deal, but because he was a high draft pick. But when he came to the Knicks, I was like, this guy needs a full year to adjust to being not only in New York City, but being paid like an NBA All-Star. People are humans and they need time to adjust to these things and to pressure. But I don't think Reeves is going to be there this season to an extent where it works with these other guys. Maybe the continuity is there, but I don't think Ham has been great. Maybe the stars are there, but both of these guys, LeBron because of his age and Davis because of his availability, are questionable to be impactful playoff players in every game you play in. So too many questions with me for this Lakers team, had me low on them coming into the year. My panic meter with them, I'm going to go 7. And it's because I'm not panicking. I was just kind of disappointed before the season started that this is the run they were going to go at with LeBron. This is the team they were going to go with.
Fair enough. So like Albert, I was pretty high on these guys coming in. To be honest, it was a lot like the Clippers. I have this vision for how these guys' roles should fit and how they could fit and the way they play individually. Darvin Ham's not doing his job. Tyronn Lue's not doing their job. So it's a bad coaching situation right now, even though I believe in Ty Lue a lot more than Darvin Ham to bring these pieces together. But as for the Lakers, it's up to LeBron to tie everything together. And I've thought this because, I mean, I don't think he allows Darvin Ham to coach as much as he should in general. LeBron's chucking way too many threes right now. He's settling for way too many ISOs. I don't like the way he's playing right now. I just don't think it's his winningest basketball he can play whatsoever. Therefore, I kind of blame LeBron and AD for Austin Reeves' slow start. D'Lo too. I truly think they were putting him in the corner more. I just think he wasn't a focal point. And I mean, yeah, you got to blame the coach for that too, not stepping in. And Austin Reeves is kind of one of those things where I always say there's the LeBron effect. Like once you like ride this dopamine hit when you first start playing with them and your numbers go up and things are looking good. And then all of a sudden LeBron gets complacent with you and you just drop way down and you're not near the player that you could be or that people think you are. And Austin Reeves, I think, is turning that corner now. I think he's like asserting himself. He's being more aggressive, but he didn't do that the first 5 or 6 games. But he went from averaging 7, 8 points those first 5 games to he averaged 18 over the last 5 or so. And efficiency's gone up too. But I just see a notable difference in the way he's being used and the way he asserts himself. However, the other guys on the team, Christian Wood, you name it, Cam Reddish, it's like just like what you said, Kris. They're not fitting into this role or this box that they need to and the way they should fit. I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, these guys have played together, most of them, for over a year now. And so I don't need to give these guys 20 to 40 games. I think I'm ready to make a call on them now where let's go get Zach LaVine. Let's fire up the engine. Let's go get him, shake it up a little bit. Get a guy that has some energy and bounce to him. I think he would love playing next to him, but you need defense coming in too, so you better be getting Caruso coming in that package. It would be a perfect way to offload D'Lo, downloading, load him off. I'm trying to figure out something to
That's
play
funny.
there.
That's funny.
But my panic meter isn't that high, but it's high. I mean, I wasn't panicking about these guys at all before the year because LeBron has played in almost every game. So I'd say it's probably 6-ish, 6, 7.
Yeah, I'm a
Tough
little
to say.
lower on the yeah, I'm a little lower on the panic meter. I mean, again, it's 10 games. I know we're overreacting with the Bulls and the Pelicans being at 10s, but the Lakers are 5-5. They're on a 2-game winning streak. Most likely going to win tonight. We're recording on Tuesday. They play the Grizzlies as their in-season tournament game, so they're probably going to be 6-5. LeBron took the previous game off, and you're right. Austin Reeves has been a lot better since that really bad start. I think the first 3 or 4 games. We talk about this we've talked about this probably the last 4 seasons as NBA followers, right? Anthony Davis needs to become the best player on the team. LeBron James at this stage of his career should not be the best player and should not have to be that conduit. Although I agree the style, I'm not liking with LeBron because it's either layup or three right now instead of like moving the ball around, getting the defense unbalanced, and then kicking it out to the weak side. He used to be so good at that. He doesn't do that anymore. It's all ISO. So I agree with that statement when it comes to LeBron. But man, Anthony Davis, show us that you're an all NBA player for more than 40 straight games. Like we need to see it as NBA fans. Although people are annoyed with his playing style, he falls too much, gets hurt too often. But yeah, we just need to see Anthony Davis become the player for the Lakers.
Yeah, man. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. Zach, let's pivot right to you though. I just I cannot. It can't be
I
the
think we're gonna
Bulls.
agree. I think we're gonna disagree on this team. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, another team I was extremely high on before the year. Thought everybody was gonna buy in. That's the word of the day, I think. Engaged, buy in. That's I guess panic meter. Those are trigger words for sure. But it's not happening right now, and you can blame a couple stars, a couple big time role players being out. This is the Cleveland Cavaliers we're talking about.
Oh,
JB Bickerstaff. Was really proud of him as a long-time guy who deserved a shot at being a head coach. Finally gets it. Overachieved, did great things last year, and maybe underachieved in the playoffs, you can say. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That Knicks team was good. We like to give them some props there. But with that said, I thought this team was going to take a huge leap. I didn't know if JB was the guy to get the job done and level up Evan Mobley. That's a tough ask, and tie in the depth that they have because they have a lot of depth, in my opinion. But I think even with Darius Garland being out, they should still be winning a lot more games. They're 4-6 right now. Donovan Mitchell is putting up MVP numbers. He's in the conversation if they're winning games. Probably not in top 10 right now because of their record. But if they had like 6-4 record, he would be in the top 10, for instance. But I personally don't think Donovan Mitchell is even trying to play within the system. I've watched this team a lot. I think he's out there to get his numbers and increase that trade value. And call me hypothetical Zach or I don't know, magic 8 ball Zach, just reading into the future, whatever you want to call me. But I truly think there's an underlying factor here that he wants to get the hell out of there, and he wants to keep his stock high. And yes, his assist numbers are just fine. The numbers look good across the board, but from what I've noticed, I mean, I don't like his shot selection. I don't like how he's playing overall, like as a teammate, as a floor general, as a leader of this team, because Darius Garland's out. He needs to be that guy. And
Yeah.
so I think he's just putting up stats right now, and it's not really impactful ball. And Evan Mobley, they can't find a way to fit him into the system, whatever their system may be. And I don't think JB's got a very sound system. So Donovan Mitchell, I think his value is very high. Therefore, the panic meters are not that high, and I think it's going to remain high. It's just this iteration, they paid a lot for him, and they wanted to see it fully functioning, which I don't know if we did last year. And so I don't think we're ever going to see that, honestly. I don't know if we are, and what it could be. So maybe sell high, because I think his stock is very, very high, or it should be, and get rid of him. Get rid of him. But panic wise, I don't know. Let's go a 5. Let's go 5, right in the middle.
All right. All right. I think for me with Cleveland, I'm not super high on what they've got going on right now. I think the human aspect of basketball gets underrated all the time. I've already talked about it on this specific episode of this podcast, and I've definitely talked about it on this podcast before. And I think everyone on the Cleveland Cavaliers knows that Donovan Mitchell is not long for that team. So coming into this season, these guys, for no fault of their own, are operating under the following pressure. If we don't win, our best player's gone. I don't think that's conducive to any sort of success. Evan Mobley is I said last year when the Knicks beat the Cavs in the playoffs, he was 2 years and 25 pounds away. So that means now he's a year and 20 pounds away. I mean, maybe just like 12 and a half, but he needs to bulk up a teeny bit. And I do think some more experience would be good for him as well. So, I'm not saying they should move Jared Allen. I'm not saying they should throw him at the 5 right now. I don't think that's the solution. I think Garland, Mobley, Allen, and diverting, Mitchell's whatever you get back for him if you sign and trade him somewhere, maybe Brooklyn is the spot for him. That's going to continue to be my guess as he goes to Brooklyn. Maybe you can have a fun little team together, but I really think this Cavs team path to success is just kind of staying the course and just trying to win as many games as they can to go into this next era as smoothly as possible with continuity minus Mitchell. I'm going to go 4 out of 10 on the panic meter. I think this team just needs to make the playoffs, maybe try to win a first round series, and then just keep it moving. I never had this team winning anything significant this year. So I'm not disappointed in their start because I'm a little oh, okay, they're off to a rough start. I'm not oh my God, the Cavs were supposed to be a juggernaut. There were a lot of people that thought they'd finish as the number 1 seed. That's a fun little agenda. I wasn't there though. So, I had them, I think 4th this season. So yeah, whatever. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the panic meter is tied to expectations. So I fully agree with you, Kris. So a 5 for Zach and a 4 for Kris. Pretty low, to be honest. I thought you guys were going to be a lot higher, so I wanted to go in on you guys. But yeah, for the Cavs, I'll say one thing that you guys shouldn't have to worry about is they're still playing defense. So right now they're rated 6 in defensive rating. They've had a really, really tough first 10 games in terms of strength of schedule. That's 8th hardest, and they've faced the 5th best defenses during that time. So yes, it made sense for them to struggle offensively, but they right now, even at 4 and 6 guys, they have a plus 2.7 net rating, which is 6th best in the league. I mean, this team, in my opinion, I think we should talk about this year's iteration of the Cavs a little differently, in my opinion. I think they should be shooting for higher. I think it should be 2nd round or bust for this team. I know that it's not a great fit because the talent there doesn't mesh well geometrically on the court. Maybe you have to just split up Allen and Mobley. Who knows? Maybe you have to split up Mitchell and Garland, which at this point they're just going to hold on to Mitchell. But I like this team. I still believe in this team, so I'm not too worried about it. I think what we're going to see more in terms of like where to assess them is in the next 10 games. I think those first 10 games were a little off, really hard teams that they played against. It's about to get a lot easier in terms of strength of schedule. If they go through these next 10 games going 7-3, we're talking about a team that's 11-9 and probably top 4 in the East again. So I'm not too worried about it. But me talking about the Bulls earlier in the podcast makes me feel like that's a city potentially where Donovan Mitchell can be long term. I know he's from New York. I know there's been talks about him and the Knicks. Kris just brought it with him and the Nets.
He
It makes
loves
sense, right?
Macau, man.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But another big time city, a big market that needs a star. I think Donovan Mitchell can be that guy. But who knows? Again, I'm just talking in hypotheticals.
So one big factor here is they were the number one defense in the regular season all last year. They're like 18th right now. And you wonder where that's coming from because Jared Allen's only missed 4 games. Okoro's been out a couple. They should have enough pieces there to keep this great defense alive. Max Strus, like that's what JB can hold his head on. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen if Jared Allen plays 10 games. I think straight. Maybe that's what they need just to get him back consistently. But I'm not sure where that comes from. And that was one of their big differentiators. I do think Garland and Mitchell can exceed the fit, but it's like what version of those two are we getting together? And I'm like I said, I don't like this Mitchell. I love your optimism because I want him to work. I want him to be great. But yeah, I just signed the contract. We'll see what happens then.
Hey, we'll see, man. I
Take your
think
money, Mitchell.
Brooklyn is the team to bet on.
I like Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Al, final little game for you here. What odds would you give? I mean, New York has to be the favorite for his next team, right? Just based on where things are at. So like maybe the Knicks plus 285, and then
That's
the
tough. I mean,
Heat
I think
plus the Heat plus 300, and the Nets plus
ooh,
350. I'd hammer the Nets there.
yeah, I think you're right. It is a 3-man race. All 3 teams have been connected to him now for a couple seasons. So I couldn't put the odds on that, but I do know from a handicapping perspective on the team in general, the current team he's on, for the next 10 games, it is very bullish for the Cavs. So if you want to start betting the Cavs in terms of covering spreads or even alternate spreads, this is the time you want to do it. And if they don't do it for you in the next 10 games, then you can just release, right? Catch and release, and don't worry about the Cavs for the rest of the next season. But after a struggling 4-6 start, it's a great time to buy low for a team that still has really strong defensive metrics. And Zach mentioned 18th in defensive rating. Again, a lot of that is because they've played the best teams in the first 10 games. If you adjust for it, they're still 6th in adjusted defensive rating. So again, bullish for the next 10 games. They don't do it, then that's when you can just let go.
I'm with you. Zach, anything from you here on our last team, or just
Need to see some trades.
Before I get to
explosions.
my final. All right. My final team did that in the offseason. The Milwaukee Bucks, man. This is a team that a lot of people are a little bit concerned about. I kind of went with the Suns and Bucks as teams that people in general are concerned about. I'm definitely not panicking about the Suns. As I told you guys, the Bucks are 6-4 to start the season, but just don't look like that caliber of world beater that, people thought the superstar pairing would enable them to beat. Here's the thing, though. You gotta let the depth gel. Because if you're going to try and make a run at it, if you're going to be the team that comes at it without continuity, with a new pairing of stars, you got to give your depth time to learn their new roles and what they've got to do to supplement this star play. That said, I don't think the Bucks would be committing malpractice if they were pretty active on the phones right now, just looking for pieces that could plug and play. Someone who doesn't need the ball. I know they drafted Andre Johnson to be that kind of guy for them, that Josh Hart, Josh Okogie, but with a Mario Mushroom type of vibe of player. But it's rookie year, man, and he's not going to be this contributing player in the closing playoff game. So, what can you do before Johnson comes up through the pipeline to get yourself one of those grit and grind, one of those Josh Hart, Josh Okogie build of guys that does not need a single touch all game long to provide you B+ caliber play? I think that stuff is important. I think that those guys are important. I also think that Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez can figure it out. Now, a first-year head coach, maybe going to be a little tough, but this is a team where I'm really low on the panic meter. I'm going to go 2 out of 10. And the reason being, let's let 10 more games go by. If we're 20 games in, asking these same questions, I'll go to 4.5, 5 right then and there. But right now, with the amount of talent on this team, I'm going to do what I like to do and lean into talent and trust it.
Yeah, for me, I'm not too worried about this team either because they have Giannis. I mean, at the end of the day, Giannis is one of the best players in the world. Damian Lillard has really struggled from the field, although he has saved this team on 2 games already with his clutch fourth quarter shooting. But if you look at some of his, if you dive deeper into his numbers, I mean, he's averaging 22.8, which is not bad. 33.5 minutes and 8 games played, started all 8, but he's only shooting 26.9% from the 3-point line. You don't expect that to continue. He's one of the best shooters who's ever lived. That's not going to get to 40% with this type of start, but he can definitely get it up to the high 30s. And once he gets hot, this offense is really going to take off. The thing for me is Chris Middleton. Guys, Chris Middleton has played 8 games, averaging 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Like, what's going on with Chris Middleton?
Yeah, great question. I think what was that, Kris?
11, 3, and 3, guys. Isn't he a max player?
Yeah, I just what was that? That blew out my speaker there. Jeez. That's sounding like Chris Middleton's shot going out. It's just his legs going out on him. But I don't know, man. That's one of the biggest mysteries. Him, Julius Randle, Dame. I mean, yeah, I'm putting them all in that category. That's just in the tanks right now. Stock is incredibly low. I mean, Dame's had what, 2 good games, 2 great games out of 10 or 12 right now. He's been absolutely horrible. I mean, he's running very few pick and rolls, very few actions in general with Giannis. There's no stamp of coaching or system whatsoever. Defense is really poor, bottom 5 right now on this team. And with Giannis and Brook, it should always be a top 5 defense. I truly believe that. But with that said, my panic meter is also very low because this is a team, like I said from the beginning, I like giving teams 20, 40 games. If I believed in them from the beginning to work things out, I think they will change a lot of things. Chris Middleton, man, I hope he's just not roasted. He could be roasted and they could be absolutely screwed. That would be very detrimental because they have so much invested into him and they need him. I mean, that team needs him to get to their highest levels. But my panic meter, I'm going to say, let's go 4. Let's go 4.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, y'all, that's 6 teams, right?
6 teams.
There we go.
There we go. All right, just checking. We both gave 2 because I gave mine. That's why I really wanted to know what Zach's second team was because I knew what my last team was, but I needed to know where that conversation was headed. Listen, I thought we had some good picks, but you, the listeners at home, we want to know what you thought of our picks. So comment below. Let us know on social media what you thought of the episode. We're going to wrap up here for this week. Thank you for sticking with us on all things NBA from A to Z, getting your updates on all things NBA, everything across the association from superstars to role players. We love basketball. We love keeping you guys in the loop on where we're at on these teams and just talking about these storylines as they develop. 5 stars, rate, review, like, subscribe, follow, you name it. We're here for it. Any way you want to support the show, we appreciate it a million times over. Thank you for tuning in and stick with us right here on YouTube or wherever you get your pods.
Before we close, yeah, safe travels to our guy Kris. He is heading out to the Virgin Islands for the week to cover his team there. So amazing opportunity. Take advantage of it and get everybody in the Virgin Islands to be subscribing to our podcast. That's the goal.
Do it. Yeah, go create some business cards, hand out some
Fordham men's basketball.
some flyers.
Be coming to the airwaves soon. So stay tuned. Stay with us here. Presented by Ball is Life. We are All Things NBA. Hoping you have a great week.